So the Israelis have gone and murdered the 3 sons of Ismail Haniyeh, who's basically the head of the Politburo in Hamas, or the political leader, you could say, of Hamas. And he lives in Qatar. Now, for a long time, there was this phrase that the Israelis would go ahead and repeat that, oh, well, you know, he's living in a hotel. He's like lounging about in a hotel in Doha. Well, that's obviously not true, because he's lost about 60 family members now since October 7th, including now his 3 sons. Okay, so here they are. You can see on the screen. And not only 3 sons, but also 4 grandchildren. So the Israelis, what they did is they went ahead and they launched missiles, 2 missiles from a drone at a car that they were traveling in. And I'll just remind you that today Muslims celebrate the first day of Eid, of celebrations. Okay, so it's the end of Ramadan. It's meant to be the most special, the most important part of Ramadan, and they're being killed. It's like if you would go and murder someone on Christmas Eve. It's the exact same thing, right? So just think of that. They're in a car. It's basically a family visit, and they're murdered during a family visit. Now you tell me what is military about that? Because the Israelis, if you understand what Israelis are, you understand what the IDF is, then this behavior makes sense to you. Because the Israelis, they're evil. They're evil. When you understand how the IDF came to exist, that it began with the Irgun, that it began with the Lehi, or the Stern Gang as it's also known, that it began with the Haganah. These are terrorist groups, and then they pulled together and became the IDF. Okay, I'm simplifying a bit, but it's the same principle. And many of these leaders in these terrorist groups became Israeli prime ministers. All right, Begin is one of them, for example. They were wanted terrorists in the UK till they died. Yitzhak Shamir and also Begin, who were wanted in the UK because they killed dozens of British officers. And they always did this from the beginning, since before Israel even existed. They went to Palestine. These are a bunch of Eastern European Jews. They have no connection to this land. Zero, none. They're invaders. It's like if I go now to China and I just start gunning people down, saying, no, this is my house. I was here 3,000 years ago. Look, it says in a book. the most psychotic crap you have ever heard in your life. So that's who the Israelis are. They murder people. They even murdered people who tried to find peace deals. You know, when this is, again, before you actually had a proper, quote unquote, state of Israel, if you even believe that it's a thing. Diplomats who would try and sort out agreements, and the Israelis would just go and knock them off because it's not suitable to their goals. They would prefer war than to have diplomacy. Lo and behold, how is this any different? They're murdering the children and the grandchildren of one of the top leaders in Hamas during the Eid, during the eve of Ramadan. What is this besides sabotage? It's only sabotage. It's the equivalent of the Swedish Count Bernadotte, the Swedish diplomat. He was basically trying to mediate between them. They also murdered him because peace wasn't a good option. So, you know, I'm just giving you an analogy. The Israelis murdered him because they preferred war against the Arabs than to finding a peaceful solution. All right, because they want all the land. They're not interested in diplomacy. They want to take all of the land. And so now Netanyahu is doing the same sort of thing, right? The analogy is not between Count Bernadotte and, Haniyeh, okay? I keep thinking of Yahya Sinwar. It's not Yahya Sinwar, it's Haniyeh. The analogy is not between them. The analogy is the Israelis 70, 80 years ago sabotaging peace the same way they're doing it now. Do you understand? There's no difference. And so this is a clip that they published of him receiving the news that his grandchildren and his children have been murdered.
الله يسهل عليهم الله يسهل عليهم يعني إن شاء الله ربنا ربنا يسلمك. يلا عرفت كمل. ربنا يسلمك ان شاء الله ربنا يرزقك ان شاء الله بالباقي.
So I can tell you what happened is basically he was at a hospital and he was visiting people who had been injured, who were transferred from Gaza into Qatar. And you can see he's quite cool. He has a cool air about him for someone that's being told that their family members have been killed. Let me once again, I'll explain this to you. It's not because he is happy to receive the news, but for Muslims to be martyred is a great honor, right? It's a great honor, just like you would have, again, if I can find an analogy, a rather crude analogy. It's, for example, for someone who is a Viking to go to Valhalla. It's a crude analogy, but it serves the purpose. It's an honor, but it's still painful, of course. The Israelis have a lot of propaganda where they want to make it sound like, oh my God, look at him, he's so blood, he's so bloodthirsty and evil. He will even sacrifice his own children because he's power hungry. This is Israeli propaganda, okay? As a matter of fact, you have many people in the West who've been trying to figure out how Palestinians have remained so tough during this genocide, and they understand it's because of their faith. And so you have many people who are renewing interest in the Quran because they can see this kind of strength that you see in this video that many other people in Gaza also have. And remember that the total now, I think, is 60 people in his family. Many of you watching right now, I know, have lost family in Gaza and numbers like that. Many of you that I've met in person have told me that as well. So it's not uncommon, and you can't say that he didn't give as much as anyone else who is in Gaza, right? That his geographical location of being in Qatar somehow makes it as if he is living in luxury or something. No, this is not true. He doesn't have to deal with some of the tragedy that people in Gaza have to deal with. That's obviously correct, but to say otherwise is not correct.
Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh on Wednesday confirmed that 3 of his...
Here, let me show you. This is from earlier. You have the Turkish president who called him up. I'll play the clip and then we'll talk a bit.
تسلم شكر الله سعيد تسلم وأتمنى من الله سبحانه وتعالى صبرا جميلا ويتعوضهم بالشهداء يقبلهم شهداء نساء عنده بإذن الله.
شكر الله سعيكم. تفضل.
وطبعا أنت ذكرت كل ما يجب أن يقال في هذا الشأن سمعناها. وأدعو الله أن يزيد صبركم وصبرنا.
آمين.
أرجو أن تقدر تحياتي إلى كل الأشقاء باسم شعبي.
بارك الله فيك سيادة الرئيس، وشكر الله سعيكم، وشاكرين لهذا الاتصال الذي يعبر عن ضمير هذه الأمة في تركيا وفي خارج تركيا.
Sayın Başkanı, öncelikli olarak telefonunuzdan dolayı ben size de teşekkür ediyorum ama sizlerden razı olsun. Bu aramanız hem Türkiye'nin hem ümmetin.
So you obviously it's an interpreter. Erdogan does not speak Arabic, but the reason why he's calling him, I don't think he's the only one, obviously, but when we talk about Turkey, Erdogan is Muslim Brotherhood, politically speaking, and so is Hamas. Now, obviously, to various extents. If we look at Erdogan and his policies, I mean, the guy's been feeding the Israelis oil the whole time. They announced some new sanctions now, some limited, arms exports control and other exports controls. But Azerbaijan and Turkey have been feeding the Israelis all the oil that they want and among other things. But that's a video for another time. I just wanted to show you people that are expressing their their sympathies and giving their condolences. You also have the Houthis who did so as well. I'll try and look it up for you. For some reason, they love to ban or rather censor posts. But I'll show you also another thing in a second. I just wanted to to give you the. Yeah, because I've got some posts ready for you, but they censor them on Twitter, so I have to go and find alternative sources for them. So give me a second. This is just first of all from Bukhaiti, who is from the Houthis, okay, and he's a great guy. I love him. He's really one of the best. And you can see here he says in this post, essentially he's saying, our sincere condolences to the brave Mujahid. Ismail Yahya and sorry, again I'm thinking of Yahya Sinwar. Ismail Haniyeh, head of the political bureau of Hamas, for the martyrdom of his 3 sons and 2 of his grandchildren. It's now 4 grandchildren, but he tweeted this a few hours ago. In a treacherous Israeli raid on their car. Such a sacrifice is not strange to Hamas leaders nor a surprise to them, as hundreds of them and their relatives were martyred. Led by the movement's founder, Sheikh Ahmed Yassin. Yes. So he was also struck in his car by a drone. Nothing changes. Now, the Israelis, they went in. This is what's so funny, is that this is, again, acknowledgement of an assassination and a war crime. Because they know the children are in the vehicle, and they killed them anyway. And there's no need to kill them. There is no need to kill them. Look at this, for example. The Israelis admitting the Air Force struck his children Amir, Muhammad, and Hazm, but they call them operatives. Now, again, I've no doubt that his children, his 3 sons, were affiliated with Hamas to some degree. There's nothing surprising about that. But take everything the Israelis say with a giant kilo of salt, not a pinch of salt, because they lie about everyone. They'll kill a baby and say it was a Hamas operative, right? Yeah. So, I mean, they literally did. You had children in the car and they killed them, and then they say, it's okay, it's acceptable, it's collateral. And that article I read to you the other day, the Israelis had soldiers telling the magazine that for them, it's acceptable to kill 100, 200, or 300 people to get a Hamas commander. So, for them, it's nothing. It's nothing to kill for children. This is okay for them because they think that they're God. So this is a provocation. You need to understand that when the Israelis are killing his family, they think that they can try and influence the negotiations afterwards. But they're sorely mistaken. The Israelis, actually, if they had any brains, and again, I'm not talking about, militarily, whether they are strong militarily. I'm talking about politics, about strategy. These people have no brain. They're idiots. Right now, Gaza is in a position of strength. Why do I say this? I say this because the Israelis have destroyed their international image, if they had one. They are now subject to more and more pressure from the US. The Israelis are losing on the battlefield. So they're not just losing against Hamas. They're losing against Hezbollah. They're losing against Yemen, against Syria, against Iran, against Iraq. This is not a joke to be fighting on 6 fronts. This is not a joke at all. They're losing economically because they have to put all these settlers in hotels. They have to also subsidize the 18% of the Israeli workforce that aren't coming into work since October 7th. All the businesses that are shut down in the West Bank and elsewhere and across quote unquote Israel. They are losing so badly. For Palestinians, for the people in Gaza, for someone like Haniyeh, it's like his position is, you've already killed 60 people in my family. What are you going to do that's worse than that? You can't do anything. I'm the one with control now. And I'm going to bleed you dry, figuratively and literally, in, every way that I can think of. economically, militarily. I'm going to screw you. You have no bargaining position. You have no bargaining chips, and you're in no position to start imposing demands. You know, it's like, I'm already screwed. I've lost everything. What are you going to do that's worse than this? You can't. You killed my sons. You killed my grandchildren. Who are you going to kill? Children I don't even have? People that don't exist? So this is the position of Hamas. And it's not just the position of Hamas. I'm talking about the resistance collectively, right? Same thing with Iran. With Iran, it's like you blew up the memorial for Qasem Soleimani in January. You killed 75 plus people. I think it's way higher. So forgive me. I think the number is actually much higher than that. But I know it was at least 75 the last time I looked. You then killed another a dozen security personnel the other week. You're attacking us left and right, but we've got you, in a chokehold right now. So you can keep trying to punch your way out, but we're the ones calling the shots. Okay, that's the position of the resistance. The Israelis, they want to keep the war going. Obviously, Netanyahu wants to keep the war going because the second the war stops, he's going to get sent to prison. And the Israelis will then try and rehabilitate their own image by saying, well, yes, maybe there was a bit of a genocide, but we didn't do it. It was Netanyahu and his ultra right-wing government. Like as if when the Israelis had left-wing politicians, they weren't living on stolen land. Tell me, did they give back that stolen land? Did any of this happen? Oh, right. Sharon demolished a few settlements. I don't care about the settlements. Is the country given back? No. A left-wing Israeli lives on just as much stolen land as a right-wing Israeli. I'm sorry, this is the same thing. They're drinking the same stolen water from Syria, the same stolen water from Gaza. It's the same result in the end. So I'm not going to get into semantics. The Israelis will try and rehabilitate their image. So some of them want to end the war just so they can get back to the status quo, which is let's live on the stolen land with the stolen resources, and we'll keep the Palestinians at an arm's distance and make sure they don't get a country. For Netanyahu, he just wants to stay in power and avoid prison. So they all have their own motives. But at the end of the day, right now, as I said during the last streams, it's not in the interest of the resistance to give the Israelis anything. The only condition for a hostage exchange would be, for example, if they were to free all the Palestinian prisoners. Me personally, I would demand that they even free Georges Abdallah, who is locked up in France, that they go and free even Julian Assange. I don't care. I put his name on the table. You have to make giant demands. Right now is the time. The Israelis are in a losing position. They have nothing to offer. And the Palestinians have gone through 75 years of this stuff. So it's not like they are going to get some grand mercy from the Israelis, who are known only for their brutality. I mean, who behaves like this? Who behaves like this? The Americans, maybe. That's it. The Americans and the Israelis behave like this. No wonder they go together like hand in glove. Drone striking children in a car because you don't like one of the people who is their grandfather and lives in another country. What is wrong with you? What does that accomplish? If you think that this was about his 3 sons, you're an idiot. They want to get back at Haniyeh, who's in Qatar. They want to hit back at him because they're mad that they don't have any bargaining position. Simple as that. Simple as that. And I'll just show you one last clip. This is from Hamas, from Dr. Bassem Naim. He was actually before the health minister for Palestine. He's also from the political bureau with Hamas. You know him. He's been on the show a couple of times. Let me just play the clip. You're going to laugh, honestly. His response to this whole thing was really funny.
Israelis have confirmed that they indeed were behind this assassination. What do you think the message is that Israel is trying to send out, and to whom?
Thank you very much. First of all, I have to emphasize one point before responding to your question, that such actions cannot be taken or done except by someone who is deranged, mentally retarded. It is not. These are not the actions of a civilized state or a civilized army. If they think that they are negotiating with us through killing our children or our wives after failing to achieve any of their goals by the tanks and by the airstrikes or around the table, the negotiation table, they are delusional, and we guarantee or we emphasize that they will not achieve any of their goals by such horrific crimes.
I love him. His thing is like, I'll answer your question, but I have to say something first. Only someone who is deranged and mentally retarded assassinates children. That's a good way to put it. It's a very simple, solid point. So you're not going to achieve anything through assassination when you fail to achieve it through the negotiating table. He's just a skilled politician as he is a doctor. And there are many people like I said, many people watching right now. Many of you who are watching. Many people who are in Gaza and around the world who've lost tons of family, and they're not ready to just throw all of that away or give the Israelis an easy win. As a matter of fact, I think the demand the Israelis keep making, where they say the war will end once the Palestinians release the hostages, really says who? Let's flip it around. Why don't we reverse positions and say, for example, that the hostages will be released once Israel is dismantled and all of you go back to your countries and you stop colonizing. This is also a great demand, right? Since we are just, people are just going to start making demands and with no authority. The Israelis are really funny. They are so funny. They suck politically. They have no strategy. They have lost. They've been spanked and spanked 50 times over on the battlefield. They are so screwed. They are so deluded. Who the f*** are they to start giving out demands about negotiations and start assassinating people? That's it.
It's also worth noting that the Israelis arrested his sister just over a week ago and dragged her off to some dungeon. His sister has absolutely nothing to do with politics, and it's just another brazen, callous attack against him and his family designed to provoke him and escalate